A car in Germany can be steered with thought alone. Rose Eveleth asks its driver and his team about the fiendishly difficult skills required to steer mind-controlled vehicles. Henrik Matsky is in the driving seat of a car, poised to make a very unusual maneuver. The car pulls up to a junction. He concentrates for a moment, willing the car to turn. The steering wheel spins, and the car veers to the right, accelerating away. With his hands on his lap, Matsky is driving the car with thought alone. Often it speeds up to 50 km per hour, 31 miles per hour. He's part of a team at the Free University of Berlin working on what they call the Brain Driver, a project that's hoping to bring research into reading and interpreting brain signals into people's cars and homes. What is it like to control a 1.5-ton vehicle with your mind? The original premise behind Brain Driver was to build a system that someone with a physical disability can use to maneuver through the world, as well as cars. The team has developed the technology for wheelchairs too. Brain Driver would, in theory, allow them to drive by simply thinking right and left and forward. But turning that dream into a reality is as hard as it sounds. Adalberto Larina, a roboticist with the Brain Driver project, says the team has faced two main challenges, the hardware and the humans. On the hardware side, they're trying to design a commercially viable piece of equipment that can listen in on the brain's whispers and turn them into meaningful signals that power a machine. On the human side, they've got to develop something that real people can actually learn to use. The Brain Driver consists of a headset with 16 sensors that monitor electrical signals from the brain. Clinical devices usually use 32 sensors, but Larina and his team are trying to build something that's as small, cheap and unobtrusive as possible. We think that 16 are probably too many, he says. We're trying to figure out if we can take half of them out. But there's only so much streamlining they can do before the signals get too weak. They're already working with tiny, microvolt signals from inside the brain and trying to read and interpret them. It's as if we are putting a small microphone on one side and trying to hear one of a million people shouting on the other side, says Larina. After reading these signals through the skull, the system has to turn them into instructions for the wheelchair or car. The idea is that the driver thinks one distinct thought to turn right, and another left, while the electrodes pick up the associated activity. But those thoughts won't necessarily be as simple as the words left and right. It could be something more abstract, like a certain place or a shape. It was a long process because I didn't know what to do at all. I was thinking of everything, the beach, red cubes, red circles. Eventually he figured out that if he pictured a red cube in his mind, and then imagined that cube moving forward in his skull, he could make the machine move forward. If he thought about that cube moving left, he could go left. Later on, the team realized that what he was really doing was activating his motor cortex, a process that sent out a strong enough signal to detect. In my case it was quite easy, says Matsky, which prompts the rest of the team to laugh. The other guys are laughing because it's not working for them, he explains. And that's the human challenge in making something like this work. Training your brain to produce signals that the machine can interpret is really hard. Even Matsky, who was the natural in the group, said it took months to get confident enough to actually use a car or a wheelchair. I got confident to about 70%, he says, but you can't get into a car and say, I'm 70% confident. After months of training, he was able to maneuver a car through a course on a former airport, where there would be no risk of collision should a stray thought pop into his head. The car is not approved for public roads when under mind control. He's nonchalant about the experience. It's not so weird, he says, because we've already developed autonomous cars. If you're sitting in a car that's already driving itself, it's not that weird to drive it with your brain, he says. But there are limitations. Right now, the instructions are binary. There's no way to make a slide left, or a slide right. Nor is there a way to control the speed moving forward. You also need to maintain total focus and relaxation while driving.